Okay, and we are live, Steve.
Okay. I'm calling our meeting to order. Do we have any public comments on items not on the agenda?
We have not received any for this evening.
Okay. We have our November meeting minutes. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve them, unless there's some dialogue on why they should not be approved?
I
move to approve.
Maybe I
I
second
second.
it, sorry. Okay. Too many people, okay, got it.
Together.
All in favor, show it, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nick, who will introduce Doug to us.
All right, so this evening you all will hear from Doug McCullough. As you know, Doug is our Chief Information Officer, and he'll be giving you an overview and presentation on our Connected Dublin initiatives. And so without further ado, Doug, please feel free to start.
Good evening, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here with you. Again, I'm Doug McCullough, Chief Information Officer for the City of Dublin. I'm going to share my screen with you now. And I'm doing that because talking while I'm clicking things is not the best idea. Give me one moment. Slide here. They're not great slides, and they will be word heavy. But what I was asked to speak about today is just Connected Dublin. So I'm going to go to the next, this is our logo for Connected Dublin. I wasn't given any particular restrictions or specifics, and so I'm going to go quite wide because I assume that you want to hear kind of the city's approach to this topic and kind of what we've done, where we are now, and what we think the future is. I am going to try and leave time for discussion. You could say questions, but I'll say discussion. You may have some opinions on these things or questions about it. And there is quite a lot of information or different things that we've dipped into over the last few years. So I want you to be able to just sort of take it all in. But at the same time, if some particular part of it interests you, let me know. I am going to try to talk slow like this because of us being online. And if I freeze or anything like that, I'm going to ask Nick to let me know that I froze. I'll go back. But this is indeed a story of just a lot of, I won't say chaos, but a lot of information, a lot of opportunities when it comes to a program like Connected Dublin that we've been able to try and wrestle into something that's more understandable and workable. So that is the nature of this story. But I don't want to hide any of that chaos from you. I really just want to talk about the story of how do we get to what we're doing? Where did it come from? Why are we here? What are we trying to do? And how do we think it's all going to turn out? If you feel like you'd like to interrupt me with a question or anything like that, I'm perfectly fine with that. So let's just make that a protocol. I have not presented before you guys before, so I hope that you feel comfortable doing that. I am sorry for this being kind of text heavy, but there wasn't a good way of kind of getting around that. So I want to start kind of at the beginning of what is Connected Dublin? What do we mean by that? Everyone can see my slides okay, correct?
Yes, Doug.
Okay. So I wanted to start with, what is this all about? What is a framework for even understanding it? As you guys know, a lot of this is buzzwords. And we are presented with a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, a lot of interesting new technologies. And it's my job as the CIO and many others within the city as well to wrestle it to ground and figure out what does this look like in reality, in real budgets, real schedules, real impacts to people's lives. What is the value of it and things like that? So I'd like to start us out with fiber. And anytime you talk to Dublin, you're going to talk about fiber. It's just necessary. We started out with taking a chance, putting fiber in the ground and opening up new networks to figure out what does this stuff do? What are the opportunities there? But you could call Dublink and fiber somewhat of a buzzword. And then we go to smart city, which a few years ago was the mother of all buzzwords. It didn't necessarily mean anything, but we all needed to do it right now. So if you're just a city, you need to be a smart city. Go do that. What does it even mean? We got involved with the concept of smart mobility as well. I consider this a little bit less of a buzzword, and it has to do with the movement of people and things around in a transportation system. And as we got involved with the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor, this was a part of that picture. And again, I'm mentioning all of this because you can't get to a connected Dublin without all of the influences and programs and initiatives that sort of crowded our plate, and we needed to develop a program out of that. And then the concept of intelligent transportation, which is related to smart mobility, but not exactly like that. So a few years ago, we initiated the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor through the National Highway Transportation Administration grant program, and we won and began this journey around smart mobility. And so we've been speaking a lot about intelligent transportation and what does that even mean. And I want to tell you all that a lot of the words that we used to use, like city and transportation and roads, are really being redefined a lot. So as those buzzwords were sort of spinning around, my explanation is this: is we experience kind of an avalanche of smart. Just it just came crashing down on us that IoT, or Internet of Things, and the concept behind smart parking. 5G is a new communications kind of infrastructure, wireless taking over, or purportedly taking over for wired connections, connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars, data analytics. All of these things are related to each other and needed to be a part of our picture. And I was kind of tasked with figuring that out. What is this? How does it relate? Now we have other people in the city that work on all of these things, but it all kind of sounded and smelled like technology. And so I've been just sort of having my fingers in those pies. And just as an example of where we went with smart parking, we have a strategic partnership with Fujitsu, who brought some other partners to the table. And many of you will not be aware of the fact that, we put up some equipment in the Derby Street parking lot. And I know you can't read these screens, but this just shows some of the technology that was put in place. This happens to use 5G in the parking lot, not beyond the parking lot. Cameras and camera-based analytics. It has some fiber there and edge compute devices in the parking lot in sort of a closed system that observes the parking spaces and counts how many cars are in that lot at what time, and displays it on a map. So in theory, a person could be driving to Dublin, find out what parking lot has the most available spaces, and be guided to that space. We're not getting ahead of our skis here. We just wanted to test out the technologies, and this experiment and this partnership is a part of what Connected Dublin is about, and it's how it leads us to saying, how do you spin up a program here? So this is not the story here, this smart parking, but it's just a part of one component of the story. So I want to talk about, after that history of buzzwords and go figure it out, we started with some internal efforts and kind of looking at what does smart city mean to us? How do you build one? What are the components of it? How do you take some of these new technologies and make them useful and have application within the city? So these are some of the things that we started just sort of going on. I had the authority to experiment, and we started experimenting. We started something called the Digital Experience Lab, because we recognized that smart city wasn't really meaning anything to us, and we wanted to give people digital experiences. That goes for residents and workers, staff within the city. What does it mean? So we pulled together staff outside of technology around the city and just sort of brainstormed in front of a whiteboard about what does a digital experience mean for residents and those things. And some of the things that came out of it are what you'll see below. But even forming a lab was relevant to what we were trying to do. The city came up with the Go Dublin app. You may not associate that with Connected Dublin, but it's all part of a piece, we believe. And if you're not familiar with the Go Dublin app, I assume you've maybe reviewed it over here. It's intended for residents to make a service request to the city of Dublin without going to the city or calling the city or going in through the website. One of the most popular things to do on the Go Dublin app is the chipper service, but it's things like that. So you don't call the police through the Go Dublin app, but if you do call the police for a chipper service, which does happen, they can send you to the Go Dublin app and you can find the various services that you're interested in. So instead of just coming up with an app for the city that we didn't know what its purpose was and why we needed it, we came up with one that actually serves a very specific purpose. It's very popular and it's going very well with that Go Dublin app. We experimented with augmented reality, a particular system called Total AR. I have a screen on it in the next slide, but which had to do with either holding up your phone or putting some goggles on. Augmented reality differs from virtual reality in that virtual reality completely covers all your senses. Augmented reality sits on top of an actual scene that you're looking at, and we wanted it to show some data. We have been experimenting with this under the concept of showing local history, showing wayfinding or directions, giving up-to-date information about a specific condition in an area by holding up a device. I'm just going to show you this. I don't know if you're familiar with Dublin's Reality Check campaign, which is designed to convince people in other parts of the country that it's too expensive to live where they are, especially if you're a tech worker. You ought to come to Ohio and work in Dublin. So this is a very successful, economic development campaign. And we experimented using the augmented reality Total AR. You see that green kind of cube down there. If you hold your phone over that after grabbing this app, you would see some content that we wanted you to see. It turned out to be a nice 3D situation. I think there was a dinosaur walking across the table or something like that, but we debuted it at the Memorial Tournament back when we got together and watched the Memorial Tournament. But it's an experiment with augmented reality, and we used it to show videos, or once you've gone over that, we can get a digital experience to a person in a new and innovative way. We also experimented with a chat bot and called it the Dublin Information Bot because we name everything and dibs sounded cute. We experimented with the concept of just asking the city for a piece of information. If you were to ask our admins who sit at the front desks of all of our buildings, they will tell you that the questions they get kind of fall into some common areas, such as, can you give me the phone number for this person? When is the city council meeting? When is this public meeting or that public meeting? What are the current rules with something? And information about the chipper service, or did you snowplow in my area? Just hundreds and hundreds of common questions for which we have the answer. And we wanted to experiment with using a chat bot with that. Concept here is that you could deploy this on a speaker and just speak to the speaker system and get your answer through that. Or you could do it on your phone and just type that chat in. Or when you go to the city website, you could, a box would show up and you could interact with this chat bot there. This is up and running and functioning, but needs a little bit more work before we pull it out for prime time. But I'm hoping you can begin to see a pattern of different services and digital experiments that we are undertaking in order to change the digital experiences of our residents. Also, on an internal level, we began a process of training black belts. And some of you guys said that you work in tech, so you'll know what some of these quality based systems are: Six Sigma, black belts. And we've trained a number of our staff, I think Nick is one of them, to learn these kind of process improvement things. And we began asking ourselves questions: when you start thinking about smart city, well, is the city the government or is it something else? Well, we needed to shine a light on smart government as well. So internal to the city, what does that mean? How are we using technology to improve our processes and lower costs and use data and automate things? And so we have a group of people who are focused on that as well. So reality check. This is the eventual logo of the Dublin Information Bot. It's a very cool project. Then looking to the outside. So we've talked about smart government here and where we started. But you know, it also gets mixed in with some of the concepts of intelligence and what's the difference between smart and intelligent. I won't go into that now, but you know, really looking beyond our internal administration and operations as a city and looking into neighborhoods, into businesses, and those kinds of areas. So from the original Dublin Fiber project, we began the Dublin 100 gig project, and it is a very specifically an economic development play. All of you know that there's no Dublin fiber going to your house, right? So Dublin fiber was intended to kind of originally attract a big headquarters like a Wendy's, or retain a big headquarters like a Cardinal Health or an Ohio Health or one of these big employers, so that we could get jobs in the community and benefit from those payroll taxes. That has worked really wonderfully. But there is another tier of businesses that needs much higher bandwidth, but we don't want to run fiber to all of the businesses that are not headquarters in the city. And so the 100 gig project is a technology that places edge computing and broadband inside commercial office buildings, so that that building and then core network devices at Metro Data Center and recently also Expedient Data Centers, so that you can achieve transport speeds of up to 100 gigabits per second from that building to a service provider. That transport is where much of the expense comes from in business broadband. And so by investing in that, we are attracting or retaining more businesses throughout the city of Dublin, making it a very attractive place to work. So that's a 100 gig project. Again, forgive me for breezing through these things. There's just not enough time to talk about things that we're doing here. There's been a lot of talk about residential broadband in the city of Dublin, and we have an experiment going that we've kind of kept hush and quiet about. We're going to talk a lot more about it in the coming days, involving a company that was actually founded locally in order to partner with the city to deal with what would it take for us to get fiber to the home throughout the city of Dublin. This company is Elysian Fiber, and they partnered with a company called Traxel that has invented a technology that adheres kind of a resin to the top of the ground. So along a roadway or a multi-use path, and it can actually lay fiber along that surface. So much of the expense of getting fiber to a place is the digging and the construction. So with this technology, you can lay it on top of the ground. We actually have an experiment going that not a lot of people know about yet because it hasn't been publicized in the Dublin Community Rec Center, in which we have laid a few pair of fiber on the ground and connected it into the Dublin fiber system. We are going to connect that into just a very small amount, a handful of houses, to test residential broadband. If that works, it will give us an idea of different technology that might be used across the city. No promises here, but you know, you asked for a presentation, so you're getting some inside information here on one of the ways that we're trying to address residential broadband. It's part of the picture on an external level. We are active with the Intelligent Community Forum. You may or may not know that the city of Dublin has one a Smart 21 or a Top 7 award from this global think tank out of New York 6 times. We are considered a thought leader when it comes to the concept of intelligent community, so much so that we founded and formed the Global Institute for the Study of the Intelligent Community, which we shortened to the ICF Institute in Dublin, Ohio. And we interact and interface with communities all over the world around many of these innovations. And not only do they look to us as a thought leader and as a benchmark for how to do this stuff, but we then can look to them and learn about what communities are doing in Canada and Australia, in Taiwan, in South America, wherever, and all over Europe, wherever communities are doing this stuff, we are taking those learnings that they're doing and applying them to our own operations here in the city of Dublin and in the state of Ohio. And that institute has as one of its goals the formation of an intelligent Ohio. Recently, the city of Westerville, the city of Hudson, Ohio, they have interacted with our institute in order to go for some of these awards and improve their own kind of smart and intelligent connected communities. So we are a thought leader in the space. A while back, we formed the Dublin Blockchain group in order to gather organizations that have kind of secret blockchain projects and get us all together and talk about this kind of new technology space, because we believe that it is an infrastructure of the future. And we wanted to at least gather thought leaders and others and put Dublin's name on that. We did create a blockchain project that was inspired by the Dublin Blockchain group. And again, these are just evening events in which we have people come out and talk blockchain and what are the possibilities of it and how could a city or a company use blockchain to it. And so that worked out, and we created the Dublin Digital Identity, which where it says the concept here is using blockchain technology so that people could, using a simple thing such as a QR code, protect their personal information and utilize it to engage in services or activities with their local government. But not only with the local government, with local businesses or other types of institutions. There's a lot more that could come out of that. The point to Dublin's digital identity is our stance of adopting or experimenting with something that could be the wave of the future. It may not. If it doesn't happen, then we haven't lost anything. But if it does happen, we have some expertise now. We actually have an instance of a blockchain-based application that could put us ahead in the state of Ohio as far as utilizing this technology. I put down here also unmanned aerial vehicles and drones. You may or may not know that the city of Dublin operates at least 2 drones. They're very small, and they are operated by our police department. We have high hopes with regard to using that technology, particularly by police. Other parts of the city of Dublin are not using drones, but the police can use them for missing persons, for traffic management, for disasters. They have some extraordinary uses, and we want to make sure that we are ahead of the game with regard to this technology. Now, up to this point now, you don't have a Connected Dublin program. You still have somewhat the avalanche of different buzzwords and technologies, and we are experimenting with all of it. It's kind of harried, and it's difficult to wrap these things into a specific kind of program. From here, we wanted to embrace the concept of connected, and we're maturing at this point. We're going past IoT, 5G, edge compute, blockchain, self-driving cars, all of these things that are really cool, but we don't know how does this relate to a particular program, or how does it relate really even to Dublin? What does that mean to a regular resident? Why do I care about blockchain? Why do I care about a chat bot? Why do I care about your app? What does that mean to me? And so we've gone in sort of a different direction here. and started really looking and thinking about the concept of connected. What does that mean? And from a community that was really focused on fiber and fiber connectivity, broadband connectivity, connected used to mean networks. If devices and things were networked together, then you were doing it right and you're building a smart city. But what we wanted to do is think about connecting people to their government, connecting people to their neighbors, connecting people's needs to people's solutions, And so we've really just sort of tried to wrap our minds around a different thinking about the word connected. And so one example of this, I don't know how familiar you are with the Forever Dublin program, but we had been having some conversations about aging in place in Dublin, particularly from an economic standpoint. I realize that you may not have heard it from that perspective, but Dublin has had the loss of a lot of elders who were leaving the city of Dublin to go someplace that was more friendly, Arizona, Florida, the typical spots, more friendly to aging. We can't have that. We need diversity in ages and generations in Dublin in order for the community to thrive. People wanted to keep their houses. People wanted to embrace having both grandparents and grandchildren living in one community. And a lot of people have just been in Dublin forever and they want to stay in Dublin forever. We were also at the same time looking at the technologies such as the speakers and voice assistants. And so we experimented. We bought a whole bunch of Alexas, Amazon devices, and we looked to older Dubliners and worked on getting volunteers into just on a pilot basis a number of homes to see if devices could assist older Ohioans in staying in their house. And there's a lot of advantages that you may or may not have heard of with regard to this technology in terms of reducing loneliness, medication reminders, helping people maintain contact with more people. It's a lot easier to say call Nick than it is to remember phone number. And so there's a lot of different advantages there. And that led to the concept not of a smart city program or a technical program, even though technology was in the mix, but rather a Forever Dublin aging in place program. And so I think this is where we kind of got religion and said, this is what we want to be doing. We don't want to be doing IoT. We want to be using a speaker to allow an elder American to stay in their home longer and live a more fulfilling life. That's smart in our estimation. And so we begin to rethink things like the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor, not as a space for connected and autonomous vehicles and self-driving cars and trucks, but rather connected roads and connecting communities through smart technology. So what does it mean to have a smart mobility corridor? Well, it means that you can connect goods and services to people and change commute times and reduce congestion. So that's important. Also connecting between communities. That's what I mean by connected communities. Part of the 33 Innovation Council of Governments is the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor. It actually connects the city of Dublin and the city of Marysville. We have deeper connections now to the city of Columbus, to the city of Westerville. And so connecting communities is a part of this picture as well. The 33, I mentioned that, and then also Smart Columbus and making a deeper connection there. Smart Columbus is not about the city of Columbus, it's about the Columbus region. And so the presence of smart technology there, which we are a part of, allows us to really make connections across our region and shrink the region and not make it the differences between Dublin and Columbus and Westerville and Bexley and New Albany, but rather if you are a member of this region, a resident of this region, you don't really care about that. You really want a very smooth experience and digital experience across communities. I mentioned the intelligent state that the Institute for the Study of the Intelligent Community is really working on, and we actually have done road trips and visited 5 different regions within Ohio to talk about how different broadband programs and smart city programs can be connected. And then finally, many of you will have heard about the Hyperloop program. There, MORPC is actually the lead kind of organization in our region with what they call the Midwest Connect project, which is proposing a Hyperloop route from, I think, Pittsburgh to Chicago, and it would go through Dublin, and Dublin has been an advocate for that. Again, that's not just the city of Dublin, but we have to think about really advanced technologies like a Hyperloop. If the Hyperloop is to come into existence, we want to be a part of that. You know, we want to enjoy the fruits of that innovation. If it doesn't go into existence, then, you know, we were at least at the table. And that's what Dublin is about, being the most advanced community in the state of Ohio. So we're at a point here of beginning to make sense of it all. And I hope that I've impressed upon you just the chaos of the beginning of this. We knew we wanted fiber. We kind of liked the idea of a smart city. And then there was this avalanche. And then it's kind of like, we got to do everything. We got to have smart cars and smart parking and smart lights and smart everything. From that, after we have embraced the concept of being connected, we come to more comprehensive programming and more a better position of being able to plan out something that means something to residents and businesses and commuters and stakeholders, but that is digital, that embraces digital experiences, but is technology for technology's sake. We benefited from a city council that established a visionary goal of the city of Dublin becoming the most connected city in the nation. They left it there, but they also gave us some guidance that they're really talking about, you know, broadband connectivity, but not just broadband and internet connectivity, but also the technologies and services that go along with that. And we have continued to interpret that with our connected definition. And so from that, we wind up with Connected Dublin. That's where Connected Dublin comes from. All of the technologies that I've described here fit within Connected Dublin, but instead of being haphazard, they fit within a more comprehensive program, is what I guess I'm trying to say. The 33 Smart Mobility Corridor, which doesn't really mean a lot when you listen to those words, is being rebranded into the concept of the Beta District. The Beta District, beta here being used as under the concept of beta testing. And those of you who are in technology know that when you create a new technology, you kind of have your alpha test, which you do on your bench. And then when you go out into the real world and test with real customers, they call that beta testing. So we wanted to create the Beta District where automotive technology companies could come and test their innovations. And that's what the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor is morphing into, so that from Marysville through Union County to Dublin and really on into Columbus, we are creating the Beta District to attract companies to come here and test their innovations. Connected Dublin, Connected Marysville are part of the Beta District. And so that's where this branding kind of comes from. I'm hoping that this slide is a little bit less busy and you're beginning to see a comprehensive picture of what a Connected Dublin could be and could look like. So we're picturing or envisioning a connected future. And this is not our reality right now. Excuse me. But this is where we're going. So what does Connected Dublin mean? And what should you be seeing in a few years? How do you know when you're there? How do you know when you have completed this, when you have a Connected Dublin? And I would say, if you look at these bullets, first of all, there is residential broadband, fiber to the home. Now, mind you, it doesn't have to be fiber. I don't know where 5G is going to end up, but there could be some sort of a wireless method of getting high bandwidth, reliable internet where there is competition and choice and hopefully decent prices is available to all Dublin residents. That's our vision. That's how we know Dublin is the most connected city in the nation. We don't have any students who don't have internet or a fast connection. We don't have elders who are not able to use digital means. Everybody in Dublin has access to fast internet. That's what that particular bullet has to do. We know we've gotten there when we are the beta district. We are attracting new technologies to test here. So similar to what we've already started with the Derby Street parking lot, for example, attracting Fujitsu to come to Dublin and test that technology, or the fiber to the home pilot program that Elysian Fiber and Traxel have come, or the augmented reality technology that the company is called Hollow Pundits. They're here in Dublin, Ohio, testing their augmented reality innovations. That is the strategy, and it's how we keep a high attractiveness to economic development. And then you have smart mobility. We have connected vehicles, smart parking, autonomous trucks, and intelligent transportation as part of that picture. Also, we have connected residents and smart operations within the City of Dublin, smart government. Forever Dublin, the Go Dublin app, our augmented reality or mixed reality, kiosks that we're looking at in order to promote wayfinding and a digital experience for people when they're out on the pedestrian bridge, when they're out in Bridge Park, or when they're walking around the Dancing Hares, wherever they may be, the Dublin Information Bot, the Dublin Digital Identity, and blockchain operations within government that we should be seeing with businesses and with residents. That is what connected Dublin begins to look like. And then finally, continuing with the Dublin 100 gig project, there's going to be some sort of 5G in business, and people's ability to engage with entertainment and tourism in our city will be connected, will be a digital experience. So with that, I am pausing, or you could even say stopping, and I would love to have some discussion. I just said a lot of stuff, and I would love to just have a discussion about it, see what your thoughts are, answer your questions, and take it from there.
Hey, Doug, this is Steve. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay. Something that was new to me was that smart parking. I had not heard of that. Is that going to be rolled out to other areas in Dublin, or when does that move off of beta? I'm assuming it's beta to something more widely distributed.
So the city of Dublin has multiple types of parking that we're trying to figure this stuff out. Our surface parking lots are ripe for this kind of thing. And so we could expand this elsewhere. But the second type of parking is street parking, and the third is in a parking deck or in a building. We think that these will be different technologies. We don't think that we'll use the cameras and the 5G inside a parking deck. And there are just a lot of questions about cost and are we charging for parking that need to be addressed. There is a high sensitivity in Dublin that we will transform from the free parking that we have always had into some sort of a paid parking. And what we're really trying to promote is an incentive for parking turnover. Our restaurants would really like to have more people coming in and not people parking for 5 to 8 hours. But we don't want to spook people because free parking is what makes a suburb attractive in a big city like a Columbus. So we're trying to figure that out. We wanted to prove out one technology, and we have done that with the Derby Street parking lot. We now need to prove out probably a different technology. This technology is not the solution for street parking, but it is the solution for other surface parking lots. So I would see that moving. The first thing we want to do is be successful with the test, and then we say, okay, where can we expand this to? And that comes also from having conversations with groups like this. We are also talking to the Veterans Committee. We're talking to, kind of other boards and commissions so that you could be aware and you can come back to us and say, hey, I heard about this parking thing. You really need to be moving this over here, or just sort of push us a little, because otherwise this is just an internal thing and it's difficult to get traction if residents or businesses or commuters are not saying, yeah, we need to see this over here. Does that make sense?
No, thank you.
Sure. Other reactions or questions or hate mail?
Nothing,
Hey, Doug, I think you mentioned about the blockchain group and other the intelligent groups that you're talking about. Can I have the connection with those groups, or how do I get in there? Because I didn't know if they exist actually until you showed this one. Yeah.
Sure. So when we sent out the original invitations, I just happened to have connections with people who I knew or believed had blockchain-based projects. At the time, there was some skittishness amongst people to admit that they had a blockchain project. A lot of these people are just sort of working on something inside their companies, so we kept it quiet at the time. We haven't had a Dublin Blockchain Group meeting in months, but I am planning to spin that back up again for 2021, and that will probably be as early as February. So I will be glad to send you an invitation to that meeting. And once you're on that list, you'll be invited to all of them.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Doug, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry, I was a few minutes late, but I really appreciate the presentation. It must be very exciting being in your department right now with all these initiatives.
It is exciting and frightening. Yes. So, we're tasked with making sense of it all. And I think I put that at the top of one of those slides. On the one hand, it's like, hey, what does this mean for our future? You could make something out of it. On the other hand, we're a public entity. We're not supposed to be out there just experimenting. So we have to come up with ways of experimenting that make sense for residents. At the end of the day, you ought to be coming up with something that winds up as a service or a benefit of something like that. But I must tell you, it is the absolute coolest job in the world.
Could you, I had read that there were a couple of boxes that were placed on that, on the perimeter loop area for that 33 Connect to sort of like work with automobiles and signals and things. Could you talk a little bit about that and what might be the long-term benefits of that whole type of initiative?
Sure. So part of the technology for the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor that we originally started working with is called, the acronym is DSRC, for Dedicated Short Range Communications. It's a wireless standard, very similar to Wi-Fi. And those boxes sit on top of poles. They are connected through fiber, our fiber. In the case of 33, that project, which is the Council of Governments, has purchased a certain number of those. They're spaced, I forget how wide apart, so that that entire corridor is related to that. But within each city of Marysville and city of Dublin, we have also put them up on traffic intersections, on the stoplights. And so that equipment has been placed there. The infrastructure starts with what's placed up high. They call that, well, it's on the infrastructure. And also a similar device that's placed within vehicles. And the concept here is that as that vehicle drives past that pole, you're gathering data from the vehicle can gather data from the pole, the infrastructure, and the vehicle can send data to another vehicle that's in front of it. A lot of this stuff is invisible to drivers, but the use cases that are being experimented with, for example, are wrong way driving on a exit ramp, for example. This happens more than you would expect. You have these interchanges, and this is happening over there off of, oh, I'm forgetting the name of the street. You guys all know what it is, though.
The perimeter loop, that whole.
No, over there where the exchange up there, Avery.
Avery?
Road. Right. So the Avery Muirfield Exchange up there where you're coming off of 33. If you drive down the wrong side on the on-ramp, then that is something that the system can detect and alert law enforcement or alert other drivers or alert the driver themselves. Red light warning is another use case for this. You can tell when the light is turning green if the cross street, the vehicle that's coming in, is going to run that red light. You can tell by their speed. If you can tell the driver that the light is turned green but don't go, there's an idiot there. So it's kind of like an idiot warning system. You can save lives. Another use case is pedestrians in the walkway, or those kinds of sensors. So the devices that you're seeing up on Perimeter Loop Road in particular are part of an experiment with Denso. Denso, if you don't know, is a automotive original equipment manufacturer and equipment designer. And they designed a technology that we are actually looking at in those intersections that observes and measures the traffic in those intersections. So we're looking to interact with vehicles, send information to the driver in the vehicles. The beginning of that is truly just a test. It's just gathering data and watching vehicles go through intersections. It's like watching paint dry or grass grow, and it's not sexy. But what it leads to is an environment in which a city, vehicles, and drivers are all interacting with each other, and you've created an intelligent transportation system. So that is the intent of beginning to hang cameras. Some of the technology hanging on those poles is video, there's LiDAR, there is radar, and there's DSRC. All it does is observe these cameras. If I could show you the interface, there's a camera looking out in front of the Emerald campus, as an example. We can watch vehicles making illegal U-turns right there. You know where that campus is. We can watch students jaywalking where that is, and that's a piece of data. At what time of day did the jaywalking take place, and was there a near miss, and those things? That helps the city make decisions about lights and traffic patterns, and just decisions of signage. How do you educate people? But we have cameras up there right now observing some of that activity. Does that answer your question there?
Yeah, that's very, very interesting thing.
Sure.
Hey, Doug, I know your talk was on connectivity, but is there anything happening in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning in your IT group?
There is, or there has been. It's not so much in the IT group, but here's another buzzword: artificial intelligence and machine learning can do all these cool things. If you just put your data in there, there's a lot of things that have to happen in order for you to get value from that. One of them is you have to have some idea of what you're trying to achieve, right? So you've got to have a plan. You know what I mean? And so we had not had really a lot of great use cases throughout the city, but one emerged in finance. And so we used a machine learning model to predict revenue, because that's valuable, right? How do you know what revenue is going to come in? We did this maybe 3 years ago. This was particularly difficult because when we say revenue, we're talking about tax, and tax data is locked down extraordinarily well, particularly with regard to rules and laws. So you cannot just go and grab that data and run machine learning models on it. But what we did was we actually inserted the machine learning model on the inside of the firewall so that humans couldn't see it, and analyses could take place with, let's say, 3 years worth of data on tax revenue. So that was a viable use case. We were able to successfully predict revenue projections for the following year. It was very accurate. It did not beat the humans that we have who were also doing those projections, but it did validate them. So that was a use case that we were immediately able to do because the data was there. The next thing that we need to do is look at how are we gathering data in the same way that a tax system does, so that it is subject to a machine learning value kind of proposition. And so that's what we think is going to be there with regard to traffic data that we didn't gather before. Only thing you did with traffic data is you set your traffic lights and your timing so that you could reduce congestion. After that, you don't look at it. So now how do we begin to build data sources so that you can run a machine learning model on it and make decisions. Same thing with parking. We didn't have parking because we didn't have cameras and data being gathered. So now with these sensors, we've also built a data platform so that you could run a machine learning model on it. The next big heavy lift is having a use case that adds value. You know, otherwise you're just running models all over the place. I will tell you that no one in our IT department is a artificial intelligence capable person who is running these models. We just don't have those expertise. But we have worked with external partners, and you know, I think it's important that the way to learn this often is you work with a consultant, you figure out how they did it, and then you train yourself to do it. So we've started down that road, but we've only just barely dipped our toe in the water.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Doug? Oh, go ahead.
Doug, I have a question about the Forever Dublin connections. I think the last time I heard about this, you were still in beta testing and going to expand to the next level up. Has any, you know, in the last year or so, is anything being done with that? Or I know they were at one point trying to recruit people to use Alexa, right? That kind of thing. What's the latest information on, you know, what are you finding out with that? How are you connecting that?
Well, when we first started, out of our IT budget, I actually approved purchasing a bunch of those devices because it just moved the needle. You know, folks were like, well, how will we get them? And I was like, well, how much are they again? Okay, let's buy 15 of them. You know, let's just do that. Since that time, we are not funding that. It is a public-private partnership and sort of a joint venture, and it sort of moved on its own. It does not need the City of Dublin's IT department support. As a result, I don't know how much they have done, but I know that they branded it, created a real service, and out of the organization, the nonprofit that's kind of running it, it spun out. So we've actually kind of created a small little enterprise. There has not been an advance of new technologies or services from that. The whole point of that was to use this technology to help people increase their comfort and their safety and the benefits to them. To my knowledge, that continues to happen. My direction has been with the most connected city in the nation goal to figure out how we can get broadband into houses and do more smart home kinds of things. So I have gone in a different direction to say we have proved putting these devices in homes. Now let's connect those homes and let's start layering on and adding additional kinds of benefits, security, connections to the police department, you know, things like that. So that is the next thing for me. If that could then be folded into Forever Dublin, great, but it's not necessary in order to get a benefit there. So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, close enough, or close to the mark.
Well, Doug, if you could somehow, with the technology with Forever Dublin, figure out how to get the weather more like Florida, we'd be in pretty good shape.
Absolutely. I would love to do that.
Hey,
go
I
ahead.
have a question on the 5G networks that are, you know, heading our direction. Everybody wants 5G, but nobody wants the boxes in front of their houses. This Fraxel Elysian project, is that something that's going to take the place of boxes, or is it just something that's more out there in some other area?
Yeah, I don't think it takes the place of boxes because the telecom carriers are making a bet on 5G. They're not betting on fiber, not fiber to the home, right? So they've put their investment in on 5G, and they want to see that happen. It's not really in their interest to build out a big, heavy infrastructure as they did with copper wire and spend the money to maintain that in people's homes. It's just not as lucrative to them to find a pole that they can put a box on that can serve 500 homes. They can then replace that box pretty easily. They're not really connected to homes. So they're not going to look at that as a viable thing. The only problem with it is that a utopian 5G future in which everybody's happy with it and everybody has it is going to take quite a long time. And we, like a lot of communities, still believe that a fiber connection to the internet is superior for the time being. And so we have this tug of war where we want the carrier industry to deliver this to us all, but at the same time, we don't necessarily like their prices or their access. You know, it's not universal access, and it's not, you know, the service levels are not that great. So how can we enable competition between 5G and fiber so that people could choose, so that people could, you know, what does that look like? That is what our city council has challenged us to figure out. I honestly believe that 5G is part of our future, but I also believe that fiber is part of our future, and there must be some sort of a hybrid there, and we have to figure that out. We just don't allow the industry to tell us it's going to be like this, or the federal government to tell us it's going to be like this. We have resources and experimentation. We should be figuring out for our community, how do we want to access things? How do we want to make sure that there is equity in access and those kinds of things? So I don't know if that strayed off of your point there, but you're spot on with the concept that we all want the 5G service, but we don't want the 5G box on the pole outside of our house, you know. And it's the same thing with great cell service. We don't want an 80-foot tower in our backyard, but we want higher bandwidth and more bars. So this is an attempt to work with the industry and with residents to deliver an infrastructure which we have already made a big investment on for Dublin's future. Every community is not going to be able to do that, but Dublin may be able to. So we owe it to everyone to figure out whether or not it is a viable technical solution.
Thanks.
Hey, Doug, I got a couple of questions. When you talk about AI, you know, answering my question, you mentioned about traffic lights, you know, smart lights.
Mm-hmm.
Is there people looking at finding even smarter traffic lights? Because there's so many frustrating points here in Dublin. At least I have one by my house. There, like the light at Emerald and Kaufman, where, I mean, just always seems like you're waiting there. I mean, so I guess selfishly, is there any work being done to find smarter traffic lights?
Well, there is. This technology is improving, and you can't see it, you know, when you're waiting in traffic. But I can tell you, looking at it, there is a lot of advancement being made here. One of the things that is happening is that we are learning from the technology that we're putting in place. You won't like the lessons, but you know, one of them is, for example, when you put a school, you know, when you essentially double the size of a school and you have people parking in Kaufman and parking and heading over to the Emerald campus without changing the capacity of that intersection, and you have those things happening right at drive time, right at commuting drive time when people are trying to get to work, you're in a world of hurt. And so there's only so much that technology can do about that, but it does give you data to be able to do that. We are heading for a future in which a stoplight is far less influential on your driving experience than the intelligence of your car and the reduction in congestion that comes from really having visibility into the entire system. So while you're looking at Emerald and Kaufman, we need to look all the way up Emerald to Riverside to say, how can we spread this traffic out, reroute things so that nobody ever stops and people seldom slow down, right? And that is honestly what this technology is designed to do. And the beginning of hanging equipment and putting AI in is designed to get to that future. So it's going to still be frustrating for a while, but at the end of the day, we'll have fewer stoplights at all, and less congestion, essentially, to improve the driving experience of everybody. And not just you as a driver and a commuter, but also package delivery and all sorts of delivery, and pedestrians, improving everybody's experience, not just us as drivers,
Okay. Second question, really not networking, but just curious. I know some cities are taking Bitcoins for payments, like for taxes or services.
Mm-hmm.
Anything happening like that in Dublin?
No, and I know the state had this thing for taxes as well, and they put the kibosh on that pretty quick after the administration change. And I'm a believer in innovating and trying things and seeing how that works. I will tell you that Dublin's digital identity project is a functioning blockchain that can accept and distribute digital currency.
Mhm.
The barrier to this is not technical, right? It's social, it's political. And so we have to present these possibilities and experiment on very, very low levels. I don't have the video with it loaded on this presentation, but one of the things that we wanted to do was use our point system. The digital identity comes with a digital points. Make that $1 and you have digital currency. There's really no difference between it. But how can we reward people for behaviors that we as a community have embraced, such as recycling or looking out for your neighbor or something like that? The technology is designed to do that. That's a very low pressure experiment that is not the same as paying for a service. So let's start with points. Maybe we won't all freak out with the concept of points. If I give you points, if you volunteer at the Irish Festival taking garbage out, and instead of giving you a T-shirt saying, I give you 10 points, and you can redeem those 10 points for that T-shirt, or you could redeem those same 10 points for an ink pen or for a mug or a discount on a Frosty at Wendy's. This is how we begin to build a points digital economy that benefits our behaviors. You didn't hear it from me. So.
Okay. And
Hey,
no, go on.
sorry, Doug. This maybe, I don't know, it's a kind of out-of-box question. I don't know how the government and the intellectual property. So it seems like we are investing so much money. The city of Dublin investing so much money on intellectual property. You know how the technology company, right? They invested, once if you have the results come up and they just sell it, they make a big money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean if we are successful on any of our experiment, is the city of Dublin is going to be can get anything in return of it? Not just as resident in terms of, but in replicating and using that technology to, selling the technology to the other people. Yeah. Similar to that one.
So I have thought a lot about that, and it is kind of an interesting concept that most people don't think of. You are building value in intellectual property by creating some of these innovations. Is there a monetization opportunity there? Without going too far down the road, I will say that we believe that that's one of the things you see with like shared services. So if the city of Dublin or any city becomes really good at something that's digital, it can travel to another community and you could actually lease it or license it to someone else. That's one concept behind that, I think. That shared service model is present in things like INREC, the Emergency Communication Center, where we as a service do the dispatching for emergency vehicles for Worthington, right? Or another community that's local nearby. You could conceivably use the digital identity or the augmented reality or something that we develop in-house. You could lease it out or license it to another community. That's all kind of space age stuff, but I will say that our council has asked, can you monetize insights, data, machine learning models? So I believe it's on the table. It's way out there in the future and everything, but it is a part of our thinking on if you have if you have technology, it's digital, it can be monetized. Is that close to kind of what you were asking?
Yes, that's exactly. I was thinking. I don't know, whether government can be a profitable organization or not. So that's why it's kind of
Right.
I was thinking, but yeah.
Not as government is currently conceived of, but if you think about it with our emergency communication center, INREC, they essentially are a service provider to other communities. Let's start thinking about that. They're not profiting necessarily. They make enough to be able to hire the staff to deliver the service. But as a result, Dublin becomes a greater economic center and benefits from it. So I do think that we can profit from things, but likely we, as a government, we think about just providing a service and at least being compensated for it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Doug, I think we're getting close to wrap up. I just want to offer the services of our commission, the Community Services Advisory Commission, CSAC, as a sounding board to you and your group if you need any community input on any of your future initiatives or current initiatives. We'd be happy to be a resource to you guys.
That is greatly appreciated, and the answer is yes. We do need feedback. I mean, these ideas are wacky, as you guys can see. I mean, what we don't want to do is upset Dublin residents or fail to communicate about these in some way. And so your feedback is really, really valuable. I hope that what I have presented intended to be about Connected Dublin, but to give you a wider picture so you could put Connected Dublin in context. I hope that has met the mark and kind of answered some of your questions, probably raised as many questions as it answered. But, please feel free to call upon me to talk through anything or answer a question about something. I am the city's CIO. That's what I'm here for. But I will say it's been a pleasure presenting with you and joining your meeting.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, our next item on our agenda is other items of interest. So Nick, perhaps you could update us about our February presentation and any other initiatives coming down the pike.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'd be happy to. So I don't know that I've provided this update to you all yet, but next month I have scheduled Michael Darling to come and present to the commission regarding the compost drop-off pilot program. So I know that some of you have asked questions about it, and certainly, many of you were here when we brought forward the Dublin Sustainability Framework and have been engaged in a lot of those topics and have regularly asked after some of them. So he is going to come and provide an update and summary. I'm sure many of you, or at least some of you that are participating in the program, have seen some of the statistics he's put out about the program, but they look great. It's been a really successful program. So it's an opportunity for him to come here, share a little bit about that program, and hopefully share some next steps about where he sees that going in the long run for the community. The other thing that I'm going to ask him to do as well is if he's able to maybe provide a little bit of an update on where the city's solid waste and recycling contract is at. So that's something that this commission has provided support and input and feedback on. I believe a couple of years ago, the last time or one of the last times the contract was coming up. And so if you all recall, at least those of you that were a part of that process, I believe it got advanced to City Council, and City Council sort of balked a little bit at the recommendation and ended up just re-upping the contract or extending it for a year instead of accepting a 3-year contract, which was an option that was available to the city. So that's something else I'm going to ask him to maybe provide a little bit of an update on. I'm just not sure where all of that is at currently, but because you all have been involved in that process previously, I thought it would be a good opportunity for him to speak on that piece as well. So if you all have any other questions for him, his specific area of expertise is obviously within that sort of solid waste recycling diversion in general management. So if you do have questions or anything specific you're hoping that he might touch on that occurs to you over the next month, certainly getting that to me in advance is really helpful. I can get that along to him, and that way he's aware and prepared to sort of respond to it. But he'll do a great job, those of you that have heard from him before. So that'll be good to hear in February. I don't have anything else beyond that at the moment. Obviously City Council is starting to get their legs back under them and heading into obviously 2021. They're in the process of identifying, scheduling a lot of their committee dates and their workshop dates. And obviously they had their first council meeting, not this Monday, but the last Monday, first council meeting of the year. And so, I think as they start to really sort of sit down and get a sense for everything that they need to tackle or want to tackle for this year and the next couple of years, my hope is that they'll delegate something or to this commission as they sort of discover and recognize all of the different things that they have on their plate currently. One of the other things that I have done is I've reached out to our Parks and Recreation Director, Matt Ehrman, and just asked him, sort of reminded him that the commission, is here and available to provide support and feedback on any projects that they might have forthcoming. Just sort of poked him a little bit to maybe be thinking about, is there anything that might be a good opportunity for him to bring forward? Letting him know that you all had finished your most recent project a couple of months ago and are looking for something new to take on. I have here some of the other topics that you all have identified over the last few meetings. So I'll continue to work and try to bring some intermittent updates, on those different topic areas. Doug, thank you again for coming and presenting to the commission. This is an area that they've been asking about for a little bit now. So I thought this was great and a really great opportunity to maybe get a sense of all the different things that are happening with the city, and maybe an opportunity down the road to provide some feedback or support on any projects that might come forward in the next year or two. So where everything's at right now, what I'll try to do as well is get in the habit of getting our calendar to Marja and Sandra so that they can send that out with the agenda each month, just so you all have it in front of you and can see the updated version as well. So I'll send my most updated version out to the commission so you all have it, but I'll try to get in the habit of getting that to them so that we can sort of get it routinely each month with the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other items of interest among our commission members like to bring up? No? Okay, with that being said, our next meeting will be February 9th. Okay. So with that, I adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful
Have a
evening.
good one.
Thank you.
See you
Good night.
next time. Thanks a lot again, Doug. Appreciate it. Bye.